Hi there, and welcome to. Fucking Christ! See, I was going to do a whole.
That it was just you.
I know, I did, and I was going to do a whole joke about, "Hi, we're ADHD shitter, the same as other ADHD podcasts, only you can do the rest yourself." Yeah, but he's just fucking trod on that. Anyway, welcome to episode 168 of the ADHD Adults Podcast. I'm James Brown, the man whose main superpower is a remarkable capacity for self-harm, making Keith Richards look like Mad Lizzie Webb. For any of our younger listeners or watchers, Mad Lizzie Webb was the Joe Wicks of the 1980s, just with less confidence to diagnose neurological conditions. And I'm joined, as usual, by Dr. Alex Connor, whose superpower is the capacity for holding a cage shut whilst chopping down trees in his absolutely normal, I must stress, and not murder forest. And of course, Mrs. AuDHD, whose superpower or strength is her actual strength. That's her strength, her physical strength. Alex, hi.
That was a strong opening, James. I thought it was super.
At the risk of upsetting those of a sensitive disposition, that was shit. Anyway, how are you both? Mrs. AuDHD first.
Busy, exhausted, and busy. I'm really tired. How about you?
Nope.
No.
And Alex, something.
I'm excellent, thank you, Captain Sixpants. That's your new superhero.
Give me Sixpants.
No,
Captain Sixpants.
I'm sorry. You've said that to fucking annoy me. But I would like to say thanks to Johnny Polar 44 on YouTube for coining the name Jimmy Sixpants after my six-panted suicide bag, and it's already stuck. So yeah, brilliant. Thanks for that.
Although you're Captain Sixpants to me.
Fuck off.
I know the metrics guys quit, and he told us not to bother because we're not a famous person diagnosed in the last 20 minutes, so we can't understand ADHD anymore. One of whom has sent us a letter.
What?
That's right. No, it's from. I'm just going to check who it's from. Oh, it's from a Robert from Kidderminster, James. It says. I know.
I thought he was dead.
Well, presumably from heaven, it says, I listened to your episode on epigenetics and I wanted to say from heaven, congratulations on your ADHD advocacy and helping adults with ADHD to find out what their authentic abilities and strengths are. In this case, your podcast reminded all of your listeners how much they hate listening to science. You would win a podcast prize, except to do that, you have to include an ex-Tory MP pretending to sanitize their former opinions in the spirit of balance, or you have to claim that anyone who doesn't love their ADHD is a negative force trying to downplay your innate genius. So good luck with that.
Dad's vocabulary has increased hugely since he passed away.
Nothing to do, I guess, down there, isn't there?
That's true.
A lot of reading. Can I read out a real letter?
No. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Sam. It's from Jamie, and it says, "Hey, first time writing to you guys. Glad to see you all back and ready for the podcast again, sort of. I got diagnosed at the age of 23 last year after doctors brushing back when I was a child. I was diagnosed with autism at the same time. It's been difficult coming to terms with, but I did the ADHD thing and binged every episode of your podcast in the last few months, and it's helped greatly." Weird. That was me, not Jamie. I finally got medication privately, and thanks to you, I've been able to get a shared care agreement with my GP. Awesome. I owe you guys so much. You've made this journey so much easier to navigate and helped me realize that it's okay to be different. I'm glad James is feeling better. It'll be nice to watch you guys again. I've missed seeing the vampire, the psycho, and the ever-distracted Mrs. ADHD. All the best. Jamie. James, do you know what my favourite bit about this is? Is that me lying and saying the break was because of you only being ill has caught on. That's now what everyone thinks. I'm so happy about that.
Yes, anyway, carry on.
I'm still missing the Tarquin, the intern bit here. I think it was good, and because it wasn't a joke about someone falling over, Sam didn't get it, so we're not allowed to do it anymore.
Yeah, cut that. Anyway, as usual, this South African tech billionaire who claims his transgender child was figuratively killed by the woke mind virus of a podcast is a tragedy in 3 parts. Wow. We choose a theme. Last time around was about how to lose audience figures by doing a triple fister about the causes of ADHD. finished off with epigenetics. And this week we're going to be discussing, and probably losing even more listeners, the superpowers of ADHD issue, before then having to wade through the inevitable angry correspondence that follows. The 3 parts, as usual, include the James Dean of evidence. The little script elves have been in there, haven't they, making sure that gets changed to something that's not nasty. Bastards.
James Dean.
Alex the psycho education monkey.
Hello.
Talking about the evidence around the topic. Yes, evidence. In part 2, we'll give our personal reflections and something vaguely related to tips on dealing with the ADHD as a superpower debate. And then we'll answer some of your questions sent in the final section to phone it in, as we can't be asked to write 3 parts anymore. So, Alex, I know you have a superpower to bore me in 30 seconds. So tell us about the ADHD superpower debate, or don't, because it doesn't matter to me either way.
All right, Captain Sixpants, I will. So, okay, superpowers. The strengths of ADHD, the strengths of having the disorder that is ADHD, the strength. Okay, so the Merriam-Webster dictionary defines strengths.
No.
This is a bit tricky. I'm not sure what it means, really. I think that when people talk about the strengths of ADHD, they don't mean what we mean by the strengths of ADHD.
What about ADHD, Al? I know that didn't work there, but it's probably the only chance I'm going to get to do that bit during the introduction.
It's a fair point, Bob. I can't do it on this one. When we, as a group, and you have to chime in if you don't agree here, when we say ADHD superpower, we mean not being born with some special magic skills like that man from Taken that wanted to hit that black man in Dublin for weird racist reasons, didn't understand it. We mean that a lived experience of ADHD is a massive ball ache. And living with that massive ball ache, it gives you thoughts on it and perspectives on it that are different to someone who hasn't grown up with that massive ADHD ball ache, the lucky buggers. It's not some magic skills. It's just having to live with that and think of new ways to deal with it. We also mean that having to think of those new and maybe those ways are more creative to do something that other people don't have to, because they find it simple to do naturally. That is a skill you've developed. Whether you've got ADHD or not, that would be a skill you've developed. So in terms of a response to living with ADHD in a world where we, and frankly society, expects us to do things that are difficult for us, we have flexed some muscles and grown them. We think that can be a strength if you're lucky. And there are loads of these, that being able to use an electronic to-do list all the time for every single task. Some of us had to learn that not being phased when you forget something skill. That's the thing, because that happens every day to us. Some people aren't used to it, so they'll go to pieces. They haven't had to flex that muscle. But these are learned skills, and they need privilege and safety to learn them well.
So this is a debate. What's the other side of that debate?
That's true, yeah. Needs a second. That was a shit question, but I'll answer it for the sake of form. No, it's exactly the right question. What we're seeing and we're reading on the old internet and in shit books and shit podcasts is that ADHD is a kind of speedy brain, intuitive, creative lottery win. Well done them. That we are born with natural strengths. If you just did your ADHD better, you'd be a success as well. What's a better way to say that's a massive load of old bollocks, anyone?
Well, I mean, I was going to say this hopefully would be a short answer, but is it a massive load of old bollocks? You know, is there any evidence for anything in ADHD? Evidence, Al? Evidence for anything in ADHD being considered a strength?
He gets 1 honorary degree and thinks he's Captain Science Sixpants. Well, no, but sort of. Is that a satisfactory answer? If you have a look, you can find papers like a study of elite athletes from 2019 found a high number with ADHD. So one of the take-homes of that is that ADHD medication use was high, and ADHD traits can be a challenge for sport rather than a benefit. There's a couple of exceptions, but there's not any evidence for them. It's possible that a hyperkinetic or a quick response and movements may be useful in catching or reacting to a ball, for example, but the problem is there's two issues with that. One is it was a narrative study, someone saying what they think. The second is that it was based on looking at athletes who are getting permission to take stimulant medication for sports where increased concentration is helpful.
So effectively accusing every athlete of doping just after the Olympics. How dare you?
No, excellent question. No, yes, no, well, no, but yes, obviously not. But a different review from 2022 suggested exactly that we do need to be careful about doping because medications do appear to have a positive effect on athletic performance and effects on a few physiological parameters. So that it may be that it's got to be really careful with ADHD meds and sport.
What about the 99.99999% of us that aren't elite athletes? What about other strengths, Al? What about them? Things like resilience, quick thinking, creativity, ADHD.
Well, no.
Okay.
So,
this is a great episode.
people think there are strengths, and many people cite a few papers, and I find those papers really troubling. It's papers where they literally ask rich and successful people who have ADHD if their riches and their success was because of their ADHD, and they said yes, it was. I honestly don't know what to do with that.
I can suggest something.
They said that there's cognitive dynamism, that they have more courage, they have more energy, they have more humanity, more resilience, and it's a narrative of self-description, and it's kind of sweet, really. They don't want to say, that's my personality. They want to blame it on something else because then it's more humble, I guess. But then it's not. They're not great papers.
What? I mean, obviously, I'm clearly a transcendent individual, and Mrs. AuDHD has the courage and the muscles of the Hulk,
and the humanity. Well, that's this article. Yeah, we have more courage and more humanity. Imagine thinking you have more humanity. It's that one really in this narrative that got me. The only one that's probably worth talking about is cognitive dynamism. This is sort of mental restlessness being a creative advantage. So it's often a report that we make more connections, right? We think outside the box. But when you measure those things objectively or more objectively, there just isn't a lot of evidence that we're more or less creative at all. We've dealt with creativity quite a lot, but so many people still think that they make more connections than other people. It doesn't seem to be ever go away. If you look at those studies, though, there is a reminder that those people being asked felt those things about themselves. They think they are good at things, and they put that down to ADHD. I want to reminder that if you let people earn more money than other players in Monopoly, even if you tell them, they still will think they're naturally better at Monopoly than the people who get less money. It's what humans are like.
What about he says in the middle of burnout and fatigue. What about boundless energy, Al? Because I've heard that a lot.
Yeah, me too. And in company, we're dead energetic, aren't we? I think it comes from this idea of restlessness and external validation. The reality is often that we appear full of boundless energy to the outside world. Sometimes in new situations, maybe depending on your personality type. And I think people assume we're always like that. We don't go home and crash for 3 days. In fact, in the evidence, we have more fatigue on average than people without ADHD. I think we just don't let people see that side. Resilience comes up a lot. There's a piece in the medical news today that has one. To be fair, they don't say that it's innate. They say we might have developed resilience. But the link to the science in that article says less is known about the minority of children with ADHD who may be flourishing, or they're resilient children with ADHD. But the problem is that there's no evidence for it. And actually, if you grow up with the deprivation, the negative burdens that ADHD puts on you, almost by definition, you're going to be less resilient. Intuition's another one. It keeps cropping up. We're in one really big Instagram account podcaster that, I mean, I don't know. We seem to be, might not be the same one we're talking about every time. Could be lots of different ones. Something like that. They claim that a lot of these big ADHD influencers claim they know if a new employee is a weirdo or a red flag or not. They claim to be intuitive about other people. And it isn't really a skill that humans have that. If the FBI would be in touch, wouldn't they? Or CIA or something. I think this is more the problem ADHD people have of actually knowing what they're good at and overestimating what they're good at, assuming they're good when they're not, because it just isn't correct. I think people talk about good in a crisis. And if you are the kind of ADHD person for whom you are good in a crisis, then getting a job with lots of crisis situations might be a strength, probably would be. But we're not all good in a crisis. It's not true. It comes from the few people that are. It's like Aries or Sagittarius or Herpes. I don't know my star signs. Again, if you have a natural sleep pattern that sends you to sleep at 3 a.m, like a lot of ADHD people do, a strength might be being able to do night shifts. I do not have that. It isn't universal. That's the problem.
I feel there's a Dracula joke brewing in there somewhere, possibly. Yeah.
I should do a Dracula joke. Do you have a sleep pattern, James? How does it work in your little coffin?
It's a massive coffin, but it's got smaller because I've lost a bit of weight.
Oh, I don't want to criticize. Right then. So this is the thing. People with ADHD have skills and they have talents and they have abilities and they vary just like everybody else. Whether you're ADHD or not, if you've had to flex new muscles to gain new skills, that is a strength, and it's a strength of ADHD because it comes with burdens. There's your superpower. If you think you're able to share your lived experience with someone, or you're able to learn from it and support others and be more empathic with that, or think more wisely or carefully, that's a massive strength. You're a superhero to me if you can do that. I think for those of us who've linked their hyperfocus to a healthy career and assuming that doesn't have a knock-on effect on your loved ones, Sam and James, I think that's a superpower. That's a strength. Well, very well done. I probably fit into that category a bit, but to say that's universal, that's a bit unfair. To start listing qualities, resilience and quick brains, connections and thinking outside boxes and empathy are saying these are fundamental and innate strengths of having ADHD. It's not just highly unlikely, it's probably quite unhelpful for a lot of us. I think we can build on our experiences to have strengths like a sense of humor about failing a lot and recognizing other people feeling down about themselves. We might think that we have these skills and they're innate for everyone, but they're probably not. So I think if we're going to see ADHD as a superpower, we need to think Batman and not Superman. Superman was magic. He had special magic powers. He didn't need support because it was just a special magic difference that was an advantage in many ways. If people think of ADHD like that, we will not get any support or help. And it isn't true in the first place. Batman, conversely, had a shit old time as a kid. He faced challenges that most people didn't. Watching his parents be murdered is my comparison to growing up with ADHD, but go with it. He had challenges to overcome is the point. But in order to overcome those challenges, he had to work really hard. He had innate raw talent, sure, but he also crucially had massive privilege to do that. In his case, a butler and loads of money and a house in an area of low clay content in the soil, which makes an area for an underground lair architecturally sound. Learning those superpowers costs an awful lot. It isn't free, and we're not born with them.
I think really the last 5 words summed that up and would have been a lot shorter. But on that note, we'll take a break and we'll be back. Yes, we'll be back in part 2 for tips. See you then.
Bye.
No.
Yep.
Alex, hi.
Aight. What's up? Hello, Governor.
Okay, I'm back up to speed. Let me just have a drink. Coming back in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to episode 168 of the ADHD Adults podcast, where we're talking about ADHD and superpowers or not. This is the part where we talk about our personal reflections. Am I shouting? James, what about you? No? Alex?
Sorry,
What?
I've got stitched from laughing. That was brilliant.
I thought
We
I
need to
did
play
that
the whole
really
bit.
well.
No,
Yeah.
I think I'll probably include the okay starting in 3, 2, 1 start bit because again, remember I have to edit this.
I left it
Okay.
there.
Did you though?
Yeah. Time is a relative thing. So again, it looks like the script elves have been busy because for my reflection, it says no strengths, and my tip is to dye your hair.
Well, that's who would
word for me, I suppose. So, reflection. First of all, what are we actually saying? Are we saying that for a given strength, that everyone with ADHD is better at that thing than everyone without it? To pick one strength, let's say creative thinking. Are we saying that everyone with ADHD is more creative at thinking than everybody without ADHD? Because you'll know as a scientist, Al, that separation in two variables almost never happens. Look at height, for example. Men are taller than women, but not every man is taller than every woman by default. What? So what?
This is like dogs being boys and cats being girls.
It is, yes.
Of course they are. Men are taller than women.
Yes, all of them, Alex. Yeah. Especially men that have dwarfism, for example, are taller than all women. The alternative is, are we saying on average people with ADHD have a strength or characteristic that is better than on average people without ADHD? Now, if it's the latter, obviously some people, if this is a kind of normally distributed skill or strength, whatever it is, will fall towards the lower end and then have less of that strength than the general population. So it's not everyone. But by default, it's either everyone is more whatever it is than everyone without ADHD, which is so incredibly vanishingly unlikely, or on average we are, but that means not everybody. And that's really important because of the power of words and language and identity. For the people who may not be as creative or transcendent or have as much humanity, fucking hell.
I'm brave.
It's massively diminishing. I've said before, obviously we talked about creativity a bit. I do have strengths. Al, you and I and Sam as well now are coaches.
I don't study on.
And if you're interested, by the way, you can use something called the VIA test to find out your strengths. It's a useful tool where you can find out what your personal strengths are. But my strengths, including being creative, are more than counterbalanced by my deficits. Let's face it, to be honest. So if you view, the cake and not the ingredients, the strengths, the bits that I have that might come from my ADHD that might just naturally occur, are massively outweighed by all the other shit that I have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Like yesterday, for example, where I didn't have day before yesterday, because I had a migraine yesterday. That's another deficit. I only had a couple of meetings in the calendar. Less busy day. I messaged you saying I can't do anything. Do anything. I've only got I've got 4 free hours. It's loads of free time to do work. I've got loads of work, but I can't do any of it on a busy day. If I just had like a free hour, I'd have filled that hour straight away. So yeah, well, we'll take it because we've only had 3 so far.
An hour.
Boring statement. Clacks on. Most studies in the positive aspects of ADHD are not well designed. So many of them have self-reported findings. Many of them are too small to have what we call statistical power. That means you can't generalize them for a whole population. And some of them come to conclusions where other conclusions are, equally possible. So, for example, entrepreneurship. It's one of the 2 main things you see as strengths, so creativity and entrepreneurship. And there is evidence that people with ADHD are more entrepreneurial. It's not great evidence, but when you look at that evidence, it's more strongly predicted by 2 things: impulsive symptoms, so impulsively leaving a job and starting a company, and later in life. Now, anecdotally, when I speak to the people I coach and the people I know, most of them who are now entrepreneurs said, I just couldn't work for anyone else anymore. And that's definitely my experience. That I just got to the point, I can't, I've got to work for myself because I can't work for those other people. And that's made me an entrepreneur.
And have you looked at the stats of successful entrepreneurs? That it goes right down, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, exactly. That's it. This is about starting businesses, not running successful businesses. And I'm not saying that people with ADHD don't and can't run successful businesses, because they do and can, obviously. But again, to suggest that we are all more entrepreneurial, or on average, we are more entrepreneurial, it's just not. It's not something that reflects real life, in my opinion. If you see your ADHD, I've said this before, if you see your ADHD as a strength, if you see it as a superpower, good on you. But I think all three of us are genuinely happy for you. If you do, though, the power of the words ADHD is, as an absolute statement, ADHD is a superpower. ADHD is a disability. ADHD is a strength. ADHD is an impairment. They're all right and they're all wrong, depending on the person that you ask. And therefore, if you see your ADHD as a strength or a superpower, that's fine, but don't tell other people that theirs is. Don't say to other people, or what, it's a superpower, have you not unlocked it, or what's your ADHD strength? Because it's just going to make them feel worse about themselves and that they're not ADHDing properly. That was my tip. I should have said ding. Sam, what about you?
Well, I just wonder, how did these people get diagnosed with ADHD if it's a superpower? Because don't you need to be struggling in 2 or more areas of your life in order to be diagnosed? Like, you can't be diagnosed if it's a superpower. Why would you need a diagnosis? Why would you need help? And, what message do we want to give to people here? Do we want them to think that it's a superpower? So we've actually got more things going for us than we have against us. We're actually better than normal people. Well, then why do we need accommodations at work? Why do we need people to help us? Why do we need medication if it's a superpower? I just genuinely don't understand that. And like he said, if people feel it's a superpower, amazing. But I'm not sure how they got diagnosed in the UK, if that's the case. Alex?
I really like that.
Before we go to Alex, I feel like I wrote that down somewhere and you stole it, because everything you just said, Are you fucking
kidding me? We had a conversation and I said this exact same thing to you. That's why you think so.
But I agree with all of it. You're right. I agree with everything.
So that's why you must have said.
That's why you must have read it.
Yeah, obviously it's something I must have thought of, and you've just kind of by osmosis.
Normally it'd be just guttural shrieking, wouldn't it? And
yeah, exactly.
And
that was and it was quite short, ding. But no,
I didn't have anything prepared, obviously, so I just said whatever came into my head as usual. But sorry, it obviously came out of your head and I just spoke it, because that never happens the other way round. Alex, how about you?
I couldn't agree more with you, Sam. And I hate this bit. This next bit, it sticks in my craw. It does. I thought what James said was brilliant about it not being 2 silos, because when these people on the podcast are saying you have your creativity to everyone with ADHD, they're suggesting every single one of us is more creative. It's a mad thing to say. It's absolutely bonkers. It's like saying all women are short. It's just stupid. I hadn't thought. I like it. I'm going to steal it and pretend that Sam told me it. And I'm going to take what you said a bit further, Sam. I think when I remember thinking my personality was ADHD, so I've got quite a quick brain, and so I thought, oh well, everybody must have. Well, they don't. We process on average slower, and I process quite slowly as well. I've just learned a way of dealing with it, and not daft. Everyone, I thought, must have had my talents because I am ADHD. That's all I am. But they don't. They don't. It is hard to figure out what is you and what is your ADHD. That's difficult.
Yeah. And what are your talents?
Mine. Oh, there's
taking the piss.
Oh, that's adorable. It really is adorable. You don't normally come out of character for what was obviously a joke. Oh,
I thought you didn't get it.
I know. I think everybody now knows that. Cut that. Sam's been vulnerable.
My autism was showing there. Sorry.
It was. Yes, it was. Somebody said that to me in a big meeting about me without asking if I was autistic. Your autism was showing. Amazing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
No. I'm going to say something mean, right? I've got a feeling, based on what you said, Sam, I think there might possibly be 2 different things, ADHD. I think there might be 2. And I'm happy to not have the name ADHD for one of them. So I think that the Instagram people have got a neurodivergence where they are more creative and they can channel their hyperfocus, and they've got more energy all the time and they can make wonderful connections. And then there's my one. And that doesn't have any of those things. And it's a disorder in how my brain does some executive functions and how it struggles to regulate my thoughts and my actions and my feelings. That isn't a positive. I think that we need to separate ourselves into two groups. You have ADHD, I'll have fuckwitology or something. And we separate because they're not the same fucking thing. James often texts me with, can I share, James, something like, it hurts me. He was at a family thing with Sam, and he's texted me that he couldn't handle it and had to leave. And we're in our 40s, and he was exhausted and gutted and devastated. And he's just wrote, it's exhausting. And as I told him, when he writes that to me, I feel less lonely because I feel that all the time. Why can't I spend time with my wife's family if the thing changed? Why am I such a piece of shit all the time? And usually because of my choices, but sometimes it's because of ADHD. And I don't think these bastards have got what we've got. I think we just need to say something else. Yeah.
Our friend has got, we think, predominantly hyperactive and impulsive type ADHD. Doesn't have any of the inattentive types at all. And she can choose what she hyperfocuses on, has got loads of energy all the time, and is just amazing. And it only brings her strengths. I know.
I want that.
Yeah, so I think that one might be the different type.
Maybe we need to call it.
Have we got a friend?
Yeah, Claire.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You can't.
But we know 6 Claires.
Claire is a very, very common name.
Yeah, we know 6 of them. So even if Claire's,
it could be any number of Claires, even any number of Claires that we know.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to wrap this up because I'm bored. We've got time for a game now, haven't we, Al? Time for a game, Al?
Love games and magic.
I do like games. I just don't like this bloody.
Yeah. Well, that's because I think you've lost the last 12 or something on the top. But this is personally to me, this is my favorite subject for a game since I lost my trousers, because it's so fucking ludicrous. It's more ludicrous than the trousers. So I recently realized that I'd forgotten how to use an everyday household item. Okay. Which household item had I forgotten how to use? Is it one, a pillow? Is it B, a toothbrush? Or is it 3, a phone charger? Was that right? Was that 3, Al?
It was right, yeah.
I know this.
Oh, that's really good.
You do.
Right. Pillow, toothbrush, or phone charger. I don't think it was pillow because your coffin's fleece lined. Because you ejaculate. Do you remember?
Yeah.
I don't think it's a phone charger because you have a million of them from losing them, so you do it every day. So I think it's toothbrush. I think you genuinely forgot how to brush your teeth. Just did the tops of some shit, and the 2 pointy ones at the front. Because
I don't know whether any listeners picked up on this, but clearly Alex was very, very focused on writing the answer. But if you heard, Sam went, it was pillow. After yes, Anne was pointing for number one. So you're wrong. You're wrong, Alex. It was a pillow.
I'd use a pillow.
Yeah. So for 2 weeks, I didn't sleep very well, and I was really struggling to get to sleep, and I couldn't work it out. And I hadn't changed my pillow. Nothing was different. But what I worked out what I remembered was, I sleep with only the bit of my face kind of from my nose down to my cheek on the pillow. The rest is off the pillow. So like the bottom right-hand corner of the pillow. And I would, for 2 weeks, was trying to sleep with my head in the middle of the pillow, smack bang in the middle. I was trying to work out why this doesn't feel right. Why aren't I sleeping? And then I remembered, oh yeah, I don't use pillows like that. 2 weeks, Al.
That's absolute madness.
It's not ADHD. It's something else.
Not, no.
Anyway, on that note, I don't even know what the score is, but it's getting just beyond embarrassing. Now we will take a break and we'll be back in part 3 to answer some of your questions. As Sam once said, not all of them, just 3 of them. See you in a bit.
Just 3, yeah. Bye.
No.
Strong trumpet.
Welcome back to episode 160 of the ADHD Adults podcast. We're talking in part 3, the questions 1, about the superpower debate, but probably just answering questions. I don't know. Haven't been paying attention. Sam, have you got a question for us?
I have, yes. It's from Saz. Thanks, Saz. What is it that changes in our brain chemistry? Scientific term, ? With one of those, that makes us so much more able to do things for others when we can't consistently do the same things for ourselves at all. How is it that a task being for others can seemingly improve our executive function to be able to perform things that are usually impossible? Whirlwind, Dracula, balloon, Dracula, balloon. I think it's low self-worth and low self-esteem, Saz. What do you guys think? Why is that so funny?
I was thinking earlier, for those that aren't watching the video, when Sam said I'm one of those things, she meant an emoji which has got like a rubbing chin.
Yeah, it's that one.
Because it's an audio medium, you see. So.
Yeah. And then they probably think that Saz ended her, I assume Saz is her letter by writing whirlwind, Dracula, balloon, and not a series
they did.
No, she's put emojis in.
Oh, right. Yes, they put emojis there, but they did end it with whirlwind, yes. Dracula, balloon, balloon.
Emojis. Other than that, that was flawlessly asked.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first, Al, or shall
I? Yeah, I mean, no, you do it, James. I think.
Okay. So, a lot of this comes down to reward and motivation. We have talked in the past about reward, about how an ADHD brain, or the brain of somebody with ADHD, exhibits heightened delay discounting or delayed gratification. So you'll kind of do the things that are small and immediate ding, rather than large but delayed triple ding. And reward is linked to motivation, because there is evidence actually that people with ADHD are more likely to be amotivated, as in have no internal motivation or have very low levels of internal motivation. And that means trying to engage in the stuff that you've talked about, the tasks, the executive functioning, when you don't have motivation to do it, is really difficult. But we generally tend to respond more to extrinsic or external motivation, whether that's pleasing somebody, whether it's hitting a deadline. Ding, it's a good one, yeah. whether it's hitting a deadline,
because it's hitting a dead anything for me.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that often gives us reward, and in some cases motivates us through maladaptive approaches like fear, for example, or anxiety. So there are multiple reasons we'll be able to do things for other people but not ourselves, partly because we might find external motivation rewarding, and partly because we will be driven by fear, anxiety about being seen as not having done that thing. Alex, go.
I just really like that answer. It is, I think it's self-esteem, of course. We don't do things for ourselves. I'm ignoring that you were channeling Mrs. AuDHD then. It's the external accountability, isn't it? External accountability, people watching us, not even judging us, but in a good way, doing things for other people. Is an easier trigger to a threshold of dopaminergic activity. So it's an easier trigger to reward in the brain. That we're gregarious predators as creatures. That's what humans are. So we're not cats who love being on their own. And we like to do.
I'm a cat.
You are a cat.
Did anyone see the recent the latest in the Predator series of films called Prey? I just thought it would be great if they did a new version where Alex is the Predator and it's set in his forest, but instead of using all of the technology, he's just got his chopper, ding, and a net.
Chopper in his hand.
Yeah.
I think it'd be good. And some of those like 3D glasses you get at the cinema instead of rubber goggles.
Back in the 80s.
I think they've done it. Isn't that Psycho? It's the same thing. So yeah, it's what James said, annoyingly. Can I do a question, Sam?
Please. I mean, we expect you to.
That is contractually expected.
We do one each.
Question 2. I love how you've gone with the full proper name here. Question 2 from Philip Hulse. It says, I hope that, have we got permission for that?
I always check, or Sam always checks when she
does. And we paste the name that they give to us.
Oh, yeah, that's clever. I also do things admin-wise. I feel my life is controlled by guilt. This isn't me. I do not. This is Philip. I feel my life is controlled by guilt. Mine's urges. I've lost it. Right, I'm starting with the letter. I feel my life is controlled by guilt. I feel guilty about things I've done, things I haven't done, things in the past, present, and future. Is there a connection with ADHD and constant feelings of guilt? I'm constantly concerned by every decision I make in case it's the wrong decision for others. So any decision I make is followed with guilt. Is this something you guys recognize? And if so, how do you get past the guilt, as it's exhausting to constantly feel this way and makes me think badly of myself? Again, it's right up your street, this, James. I don't know if you want to go first, because it's
right up my alley. I can go first a little bit. Yes. So there aren't any or many scientific studies which have looked at the feelings of guilt with ADHD as a kind of lifelong emotion, if you like. But there are studies which have looked at guilt around some of our activities and periods of our life. So guilt around procrastination, guilt about the past. And we do often carry lots of guilt. It's part of that collection of low self-esteem, imposter syndrome, not feeling like you're as good or the same as everybody else, grieving for what could have been when you get a late diagnosis, for example. And therefore, lots of people with ADHD report guilt. Lots of people with ADHD report shame. And those are massive drivers of our mental health, our self-esteem, how we view ourselves in relationships. The last thing that Philip Hulse, to get the name right, said is how do you get past the guilt? And it's exhausting. I'm going to paraphrase lovely Eric Hill, my friend, and I use this in coaching sessions now a lot. And he is also a coach, and he said to me that should is could wrapped in shame. And I think that is such a powerful way to view the past and to view the things that we do. I should be able to do that. I should be able to engage with that activity. I should have done this in the past. That you could have, but there was a reason. So should is a word that we should try and steer away from if we're trying to.
That we should try and steer away from.
Yes. Oh, fuck off. Got to use it in some context, for fuck's sake.
You all feel guilt, don't you? So
I mean, I've got to say the word should if I'm talking about the word should, haven't I?
You should shut up.
I'm going to now. Anyway, one of you two add something of value for once.
Well, for me, it won't be of value, obviously, but for me, I mean, I get this a lot. And this, for me, is just based on past experience because I'm always fucking up and disappointing people, and I don't want to do that anymore. So I'm just constantly feeling like, oh my God, I can't trust my decision-making process. I can't trust myself to choose the right thing because from going on past experiences, I know that I always choose the wrong thing and disappoint and hurt people. So my shame and guilt would come from, I'm going to do it again, aren't I? Because I don't know, whatever I choose, it seems to be wrong. So for me, it's just all based on past experiences and thinking that I'm shit and that I'm going to make the wrong decision. And also there might be poor metacognition because sometimes I might not have upset people, but I think I have. I might not have made the wrong decision, but I think I have. So no matter what I do, I'll give myself shit and feel guilty over it anyway. And I don't know how to stop that. But if you find out, Philip, let me know. Alex, what about you?
Do you find it weird that I don't feel guilty?
No, I know you.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone knows you're a psychopath. Why would you feel?
I mean, I would if I did something bad. Unless I thought it had been funny. I hear about it from you and from my wife and James and people, this concept of guilt, and it must be exhausting. It must be debilitating. So I try and not hurt people. that is not related to the murder box.
And you don't try hard.
It's the right thing to do. It's part of my values, but I don't generally feel this thing of guilt. And probably because of my childhood, probably because I had a healthy, loving childhood. And I think a lot of guilt comes down to the culture we're in and our experience as childhoods. We're not therapists and never, ever should be. So especially to Philip, who wrote this, I would say that the essence of therapy might help here from actually qualified people who will talk to you about how your feelings, these feelings we're talking about, are based on thoughts that we have decided are facts and absolutely are not facts. This basic example would be, if I decide to do X, then why this person will be unhappy with me. You do not know that is a fact. It is not a fact. And people, as a coach, which is like a therapist who's got no qualifications and shouldn't be allowed anywhere near anyone, people often say to me, oh, I can't do that because this will happen. And I often think, no, it won't. It probably won't. And so I have to deal with the fact that that is not true. Yeah. It might be true, but it usually isn't. But this is, so changing your thoughts is probably the way to changing your feelings and possibly even behaviors. And that's really CBT, and some of the other therapies as well need to be ADHD in thought form. That's the only thing I would add, I think. Use twos.
You could also change the podcast you listen to a better one that gives better advice.
Yeah, just a better one.
Yeah, try sending it into them.
Yeah. Just before we get on to the last question, to add something of very limited value to this, there's no such thing as a good or bad decision at the time that you take it. Those are retrospective terms. We look back at decisions and say, well, that was a good decision, that was a bad decision. And Philip's talked about the guilt about every decision he makes in case it's the wrong decision. At the time, we just make decisions. It's retrospectively.
It's still a retrospective decision.
Yes.
Surely.
It was a bad one.
Unless it was immediate.
Yes. Moving on. Question 3 is from Miss Chris. I'm wondering if there's a link between ADHD and immaturity in adults. I mean, we just fucking answered that for you. We can end the podcast there.
Don't think so. What a stupid
Have you
question.
ever listened to this podcast?
Continuing for Miss Chris, I'm 44 and tend to feel more of a connection to people in their mid-20s than to people my own age. I feel like I've never fully grown up, and my mum says that my brother and I have Peter Pan syndrome. My interests and personality tend to align with people 20 years younger. Oh my God. I was just saying to Sam last night, one of the reasons I'm unhappy is I'm not ready to grow up yet, and I don't want to have to do all the boring thing that grown-ups do. So this, I mean, I don't know about evidence. I've looked at the literature and it's hard to find it, but that, yeah, me. Alex, thoughts, go.
Sam, how do you feel about it? Because I can do some science, but it's more about how we feel that's important here, isn't it? Do you feel like a kid? No, I mean, I'm not offering you on, just to be clear.
God.
Put that.
Yeah.
It's weird because I feel both and have all of my life. From like a small child, I felt like a really grown-up adult, but simultaneously like a baby. And I feel like I've been that way all my life.
Yeah.
I feel like I was interested in things that were like at school. I loved the teachers more than the people that I was, children. That's it. Sorry. I loved the teachers. Yeah, because they read the sort of books that I liked reading, and I could have conversations with them about the sorts of stuff that I like talking about. But also I loved babysitting children on the estate, and I babysat everybody because I loved playing with little children, their, all their games and stuff like that. No, Alex.
I'm going to need a minute, sorry.
So simultaneously, I feel like I'm both Benjamin Button and I'm both Benjamin Button and Peter Pan.
Or just
now
Benjamin
to the
Button
science.
at 2 times of his life.
Come on, Alex, science us.
Yeah.
So I think it's a combination of that a lot of us do what we want to do because ADHD and autism are linked. We know they are, and there's an element of peer pressure avoidance. One of the reasons probably why there are more out people with ASD and with ADHD is because they care less what the world thinks, or they observe, they react less to social constructs. So I just forget that I'm not allowed to do this shit, that I'm not allowed to be a big baby that's doing daft stuff. When I go to the swimming baths with the kids, I'm down the slides, and it doesn't occur to me that other older dads aren't doing that. And sometimes I do it when the kids don't want to. I want to play on the slides. I always have. I always will. But we're not children. We are adults. We have had a developmental delay, but that does not mean we're children. It means we've developed differently. So I reject the idea of immaturity for having a different preference of what's funny and what we like to do and what we choose that isn't based on peer pressure. And the cultural expectations of somebody in their 40s is not to do the daft shit and say the daft shit and make the daft jokes we make. But frankly, I don't care. And I think that might be ADHD and or autism, that not caring. Well, I'm not sure it's immaturity in that sense. I think we also like jokes and messing about because there's quite an external reward that comes with that. And that is fun too, is for me. I mean, I am wildly immature most of the time. But my ADHD isn't everyone's. That's what I think.
Yeah. And I know lots of people with ADHD do feel a lot of peer pressure and will pretend that they like things that other people like.
Yeah.
And feel guilty that they don't like things that are.
Yeah.
It was a silent ding, Sam. I just did a silent ding. Don't worry.
I thought I'd done something wrong.
No. It was just.
Well, you have.
Unrelated. Immediate guilt again. I've done something wrong. So they will feel peer pressure and guilt because they want to act like a child. But you're right. Why should we do what society says?
This is called neuronormative. So because most people do something or behave neurally in a certain way, we've accidentally mistaken that typical behavior with correct. And that's called neuronormative.
And what the fuck is society anyway? Like people thousands of years ago just decided some rules and now we've all got to stick to them. I don't understand why. James, you were going to say something a number of times. Go on.
Yeah, I was just. Listen, I'm obviously loath to drag this out any further because it's nearly over, and I can almost fucking smell the light at the end of the tunnel. But just two things quickly. One, Sam, is that a ghost behind you?
Oh no, it's my top. It's a top. It's clothes. I just put them over surfaces.
Okay.
There are some shorts and a t-shirt.
That's enough of an answer. And the other thing quickly was I just wondered whether either of you thought the neurodevelopmental delay that we see in ADHD, that means that we're often 2 to 3 years behind when it comes to that neurodevelopmental maturation. Do you think if that happens at a key period of socialization, it's kind of late teens, early 20s, when people are accepting those social norms, this is how an adult lives, do you think that might impact a lifelong approach to immaturity?
Possibly. I hear a lot of autistic people saying that as they grew up, their interests just didn't mature with them. So they had the same interests as their peers when they were smaller, and then the people that they were in classes with got big. I'm sorry. I'm at that point where I'm losing my words. Not bigger, older, and their interests progressed with them, but they still had the same interests. So I don't know where I'm going with this.
And that's fine.
No, I'm the same. That happened to me, Sam. I still have toys.
Yeah.
And I always will. I don't give a shit. Yeah. And they're the same toys, just more of them.
But I did have a point, but I lost it on the way. So sorry.
That maybe other people move away and we stay as we are. This isn't a scientific. This is a non-science klaxon, James, but it's sort of science. I think if I had to be pressed, I would say that we will stop saying developmental delay in the next 5 years, and I think we will realize that it's wrong. And actually, what happens is it's a developmental difference that never realigns, and I think it's more like a fork than a delay. Yes, and I think that what we see as immaturity is often because the symptom, executive function and personality symptoms on average of people with ADHD are similar to that we ascribe to a lack of maturity.
Sorry, can I stop you there?
Yeah.
Okay, that was episode 168 of the ADHD Adults podcast, where we talked about ADHD and the superpower debate, and Alex decided that there's apparently 2 ADHDs, the good one and the bad one. That's not science, people. If by a miracle you enjoyed this episode and are still listening, probably about 5 people, we have a website and W's and our names, etc. on it, where you can send in questions, some dots. You can send in letters. You can horribly abuse me because I read them and weep, etc. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye all.
Trigger warning klaxon. Klaxon, 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 big klaxon. Trigger warning klaxon. Klaxon, 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 klaxon.
Right,
I found a note recently in my... What?
Go.
Oh, he has to
There was a
cut, you see,
massive
and that-
silence then.
Oh, fucking...
Cut.
Yeah.
I found a note recently in my phone that said, there was a rat in my head that chewed off part of my hair, but no one wanted to disturb me. Discuss.
In your head.
Yes, I think what happened was I must have had a dream and I felt so strongly about this that I made a note of it in my phone, and I presumed that I had a rat in my head that chewed off part of my hair, and people told me afterwards, but they also told me that we didn't want to disturb you, so we just let the rat chew part of your hair and then go back inside your head. It's nice, isn't it?